Yeah, I like to go for a walk, go for a drive. I always find motion to be very inspiring for some reason. Hey guys, welcome to Inside Comics with George McHale. Really quick, if you like this content, subscribe and tell a friend about it. Today, my guest is David Doub. David, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
David, you're a writer, and your book, Little Deaths, is on Kickstarter right now. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. But before, I'd like to talk about something that I think all writers struggle with sometimes is writer's block. Do you ever get it? And what do you do when you feel like you're having trouble being creative?
Yeah, obviously there's always, the pressure to perform and all that, and especially if you want to keep, getting stuff out, because if you don't get stuff out, people forget there's so much going on out there. So there's a lot of pressure to keep doing stuff. And so when you put yourself under that pressure, as I keep saying, that blocks you up a little bit. And sometimes you got to learn to just, and it sounds simple, but you got to just step away, because I found that if you think you can just power through something like, oh, wait, I know how to fix this, or have this great idea for a book, it's like, just step away for a moment. And, I usually find that if you give it a breathing room, at least with me, my brain will start to put it together, or distance will be like, no, that wasn't really working. Let's move on to something else. So it's really, for me, it's about, letting go from trying to make the story happen, and just, getting away and let it to come back. Because if there is a story, it will be told, and it will start, the gears will start moving and all that. But if you try to force it, nothing will come out. It's kind of like all those stories where like where you're lucky and you try to make the luck happen. It's like, no, it never, it never performs when you need it. It comes out at weird times. So you learn to just kind of step back and just, give yourself breathing room, and it'll work itself out. And if you're worried about it working itself out, you're not taking a break. So you need to calm down.
Yeah, I like to go for a walk, go for a drive. I always find motion to be very inspiring for some reason. It seems like I do like my most amount of work is like when I'm on an airplane. If I got like a 2 hour flight, holy smokes, am I banging out something? Just like it really comes to me for some reason. So moving, and also like so often as comic book creators, we're in like our own little bubble, and we're by ourselves. And if you get locked up, maybe try going for a beer with a friend and tell them about your story. And then that's when you can start kind of getting, oh yeah, no, I just thought of this. Or maybe they'll have a suggestion, and maybe their suggestion's terrible and you don't use it, but at least you're talking about it and you're thinking about it in a new
Yeah,
way.
you're getting different viewpoints, and you're moving along. It's not just sitting there in your head. Like you said, even if it's bad, it's still, you're thinking about it from a different angle. That's pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, planning is so important, right? Like if you plan your story out properly before you really start scripting, you're probably not going to have as much writer's block, right? If you really
Sure.
kind of know who your characters are and where they're going, then it you shouldn't get stuck as bad. And so
Yeah, you
really,
won't be wandering as much, because you know that it's like a road trip. You know where you're going. You just gotta get there. But I would say it's a double-edged sword. Is some people hold on to something, that old saying of "Don't be afraid to kill your baby." Sometimes you're like, no, we gotta jettison this for the complete outline. But I say that's very good advice overall. Is like, if you know where you're going, that helps out a lot.
what does your planning process look like?
Me, I do it a lot in my head, because that way I always feel. I mean, I do outlines and all that, and I'll even break it down on page, but I don't write it down as much, because I feel if the details are important enough, they'll stick, or or it'll become more fluid, and that way I don't get stuck on what's on the page because I'm only going by memory. Now, sometimes I do lose some good stuff, but predominantly I try to keep it as, I mean, like I said, I do an outline, but I try to keep it as fluid as possible till I'm putting it on the page. And even then, I try to give them. It's weird. It's kind of like some martial arts water thing about how it's fluid, but powerful and all that. So I try to be it as firm but as fluid as possible.
Yeah, Bruce Lee.
Yes.
Water, my friends. Yeah, no, for me, I like to plan. I really like to know where I'm going and what I'm doing with it. And I'm always making notes too, like on my phone. If someone says something cool, I'm like, oh, that's a good line. I'm gonna put that in. And they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm gonna steal that. It's like, well, because that's where you kind of get inspiration. It's just being around other people and talking. It inspires so much in my writing, especially because I want my
Yeah. They what's
conversation to
the
sound natural.
That's another saying is you can't write what you don't know. So and that's you're talking about writer's block. Is I've seen better writers than me have always talked about you need to experience the world and all that. And you don't have to, like join the French Foreign Legion and do all of that, but get outside of comic books and cons and all that and see a different movie or read a different book, read a nonfiction book. And because you can't write with what you don't know.
Yeah. So your book, Little Deaths, is out on Kickstarter now, and I'm wondering
Hmm.
if you can tell us about it.
Yeah, sure. It was actually interesting enough. It's about my French is not the best, but it's Julie developed in early early 17th century France, and I learned about her through memes because they're all like, "Oh yeah, once she dated this girl," and her parents are all like, "Well, this is wrong. You're going to have to we're sending her to a nunnery to get her away from you." So then she goes, "Well, I still want her." So she sneaks into the place as a nun, digs up a dead nun. She doesn't kill one. She digs up one to fake her girlfriend's death, and then sets fire to the whole place to escape. And then they break up like 3 months later. And I was all like, "This can't be real." And so I googled it, and no, she was like that through her whole life. She was an accomplished sword woman. She was an opera singer. She was one time she traveled all through France just by doing singing and sword fights for money and all that. So I was like, well, we got to do a story about this. And but in true comic faction, we added in magic and monsters and all that. We added a little bit more that comic flair. So we hope it's entertaining, but also fun historical stuff too. So it's a good blend based upon someone who's you know you know how they say it's like truth is weirder than fiction.
Uh, what format is this? Is the series? Is it like a single issue? Is it going to be collected as a graphic novel?
If the first one does well, we'll do on to another one. But each comic has little separate stories, so kind of like little vignettes of different things. So we can tell a good ghost story to something that's more of a sexy comedy romp. So we can kind of go back and forth without being like, "Whoa, that is all over the place."
And who's doing the art for you?
That is Andrew Herman. I've known him for a while through we're both locals in Texas, and we've been wanting to work together for a while. And I knew his art would be perfect for this because he does that really good girl art sort of thing. So it fits really well for this project.
And what kind of rewards are you offering on Kickstarter?
We're keeping it to the simplistic ones. We're keeping it to a couple of different covers, some prints. We are having some fun to where if you're role playing, you get Dungeons and Dragons, and you can get a Dungeons and Dragons character sheet of her. There's even a module that can be unlocked. Where even our biggest stretch goal is you can unlock a whole new story that will add to the book. So there's a lot of good content we're trying to throw in there.
That's really cool. I've never heard of that. Having a Dungeons and Dragons expansion to your character, to the book.
Well, I'm a big gamer, and some of my other books are based upon some of the games that are in, so it just kind of fits hand in hand for me.
Wow. That sounds amazing. Well, I encourage everyone to check out Little Deaths on Kickstarter now. And David Doub, I want to thank you for being on Inside Comics.
Thank you for having me, and great talking to you.
Peace, dude.